What if the hardest moments in your life weren't the end, but the beginning of who you're meant to become? Today's guest, Chanoa Inez, has lived through loss, grief, and rebuilding, and turned that journey into a powerful message about self love, resilience, and rediscovering joy. She's a former co writer and strategist who transformed her personal experiences into a book designed to help others break free from feeling stuck and start living again. Her work focuses on something many people struggle with but rarely understand: the relationship you have with yourself and how that shapes everything in your life. If you ever felt lost, held back, or unsure how to move forward, this conversation will reunite with you. Please join me in welcoming today's guest, Chanoa Inez. Let's get into it. Hello, Chanoa, and thank you for joining the Influence Exchange. Thank you for taking time out of your day and meeting here with us today. How are you?
I'm good, JB. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. So, Chanoa, after 14 years of working as a copywriter and strategist, you decided to create your book and author your book of Dream On. Let's dive into that a little bit and explain the journey and the mindset behind it, please.
Yeah, it's not a path I thought I was going to take, um, but I'll reverse. So I started my copywriting and strategy business first, just copywriting, as a side gig. And when I went to Montenegro, I fell in love with it. I went on vacation with my boyfriend at the time. We lived together in Miami, and I didn't want to come back. So we agreed that we would move there the next summer to stay. And so I was going to convert my copywriting business to be full time. So I had a year to build that up.
Mhm.
So that did work out wise, but unfortunately, the day, our first day on the next summer, the summer that we went there to move, it was rather magical. It was the first time in my life up until that point that I felt like everything was just perfect. I had no problems in my life. Like everything was just aligned. And we had a rather magical day. Unfortunately, in the morning, I woke up, but he did not. And it was just a shock, as you can imagine.
Sure.
Um, in your 20s, somebody tells you, to look out, it's the last thing you think about. It's not like,
Well,
a couple in the last chapter of their lives. So it was very jarring to me. And I decided to stay in Europe because I felt happier there at that time. I knew I wanted to leave Miami. I just didn't know where I wanted to go. And it was interesting because, it was very stop and go, right?
right.
Grief is it's kind of a windy road. You can feel good today and
Right.
then,
Yeah.
the opposite a few days later. So the first 2 years were kind of hard and not kind of hard, very hard. But then when I got to a place where I felt like I'd gotten past the grief, like obviously I will always grieve that loss that
Of
he's not
course.
here. But felt like I got to a place of strength. So I just assumed whatever stress I had in my life had to do with what was happening in the moment. But I didn't realize that it hadn't actually processed all the grief. So I started having health challenges over
Mhm.
time and, like food allergies one after the next and so many different things. And it was strange because I rarely even caught a cold or anything like that. So um, it was definitely a big change in lifestyle and the things I'd have to consider going to a restaurant, having these conversations, looking at
Mhm.
ingredients. And I didn't know that it was because I had a feeling it was stress related, but I
Sure.
didn't know it was from the grief. So the good news about having all those health challenges is that there's nothing that a doctor could do to help me. So I started meditating
Mhm.
and doing yoga and trying all these other modalities that I'd never done before. When he passed away, I had no tools for stress management. So that really was an interesting journey. I learned a lot about myself, but I knew there was something missing because I just couldn't believe that these things were like basically helping me survive and
Sure.
they were not helping me turn my health around completely. and just other things in my life. Everything felt like there was some kind of block. So, unbeknownst to me, after he passed away, I developed this kind of a defense mechanism where I didn't want to lose. So I shrunk back. I shrunk my world smaller. So it felt like I had these big goals, but they were not really. Looking back at the goals I had before he
Of
passed away,
course.
it was not quite there. So in that whole journey, I there was a point where almost 7 years later, I decided I wanted to move back to the States. So Los Angeles seemed appealing. uh, I moved to LA, and just like having that scenery changed a lot already, because my identity was basically shook up, and I moved to a place that's is kind of built on this idea of dreaming big, right?
Right,
Like
right.
I
Of
lived
course. Yeah.
beneath the Hollywood sign when I moved here. So so that helped a lot, and I realized I had a lot more vitality. Some of my health issues went away just
Hmm.
from that, and I was like, wow, that's very interesting. There's still a lot of things I wasn't seeing, but a few years later, it really dawned on me. Like I had the end of a romantic relationship, and one of my closest friends, platonic friends at the time, she kept talking about, basically sharing her disapproval of this
Sure.
person. And it was funny. I woke up one day and I thought, it's the same dynamic, but the friendship version.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
I called her and I just said, you have to change or we can't be friends anymore. This is
Right.
just too much. And yeah, so had too much going on. She was like, I can't change. I have my
Sure.
life's a mess right now. So it was very challenging because somebody I was close to for so many years, like a
Hmm.
decade.
Right.
Um, but I realized, wow, I finally understood what self-love meant because I read all these books. I'd meditate. I went to the Amazon for plant medicine retreat, all these things that, yeah, they can help, but I didn't have the foundation. And so
Sure.
all that stuff, it was all kind of undermined because I was missing that self-love piece. I finally realized, how could I say I love myself? And the two people I spend the most time with were people who would help me stay in this role of a victim. That's when I realized I had a victim mindset even before Bodo passed away, but it got worse after he
Sure.
passed, because obviously it was so strange, like why me kind of situation, why us? And but as hard as those things were to look at, like how did I not see this for
Yeah.
so long? There was the best like realizations in my life. Everything started changing very quickly. My health started turning around.
Hmm.
Started doing more advanced version of meditation or
Sure.
modality. And I loved it. And I just decided outside of my business, I'm going to spend, I was spending 3, 4 hours a day meditating. And that's not including like time reading and
Amazing.
writing down like patterns I'm finding
Sure. Sure.
within myself, just because, spending
Mhm.
that many years trying to like undo things. And I was
Of
just like,
course.
I'm just not going to do this. And it was an interesting journey, but it was funny because I finally got to a point where I just felt wonderful. And every year of my life, just fantastic. And I
Yeah.
remember getting home one day, walking across the living room, and it just dawned on me like, oh, I just stepped out of the cloud of grief.
Wow.
And it was
Yeah.
shocking. And then the next thought was, I have to write a book because, I don't regret how long it took me to come out of that. But I wrote a book to help other people so they don't get stuck. There's like this dangerous period, I like to call it, when something difficult happens, when it's the loss of a loved one, a job, a career, a business, anything like that. There's a point where if we don't start to kind of build ourselves up stronger as we move forward, we get stuck in a kind of limbo where we've been playing small and shrinking back, and we can't even see that it's happening.
Sure.
And that's like it's just it's an unfortunate place to be. So I wrote the book to help people connect to joy faster, and to really strengthen the relationships they have with themselves.
Yeah. That's amazing. Your journey is incredible, Chanoa. So, Shanoa, you used an incredible word, and I want to talk a little bit about it. You used the word self love. So, for the audience that's listening or watching on YouTube, your definition of self love, can you explain that a little bit, please?
Mm. Oh, that's interesting. I think it's often confused with the topic, the word self care.
Sure.
Like, oh, I'm going to watch a movie because that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to do these special things for myself. And I think it's important that we do have fun and do nice things for ourselves. But self love, it's like looking at how love you have for a child, for example, the things that you would say to a child, you would never err on the side of like hurting that child's feelings. And the dialogues that we have with ourselves, we're just like ignoring so many things that we need to give ourselves. I would call self love the opposite of that. It's just really having this unshakable relationship with yourself, unconditional love.
Absolutely.
You forgive yourself when you make mistakes. You have understanding for yourself today and for versions of you that were not as wise as you are today.
Right.
And no matter what happens, it's really hard to feel lonely because you have this solid relationship internally, and you also start to rely less on external validation. It becomes
Yes.
like a nice to have. You just have this really, really strong base.
Sure, sure. And do you think you gained self love from practicing yoga, meditating, reading books? You think that's part of it?
Um, Well, reading books, there's knowledge, the knowledge piece. There's also knowledge we can get from even doing yoga and meditation if we're paying attention
Hmm.
to the realizations we're having inside, right? What insights am I getting?
Yeah.
Things are, lights being shed on different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that knowledge piece is important, but none of those things can give that to you. You
Mm.
have to take that knowledge and apply it. Um, a lot of people, and I was one of them, when I was doing all those modalities and reading all those books, I had all that knowledge, but I couldn't see this very obvious fact that hadn't nourished that self love piece. So, yeah, you can't get it anywhere else. And it's really an ongoing relationship, right? Like, you don't get married and then stop taking care of the
Right.
person you married. It's a daily, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
And that,
tweaking, assessing, like, how am I showing up in this relationship?
of
What does this
course.
person need? What do I need?
Right.
So it is an ongoing practice for sure.
It is. The reason why I asked that question is there's so many people out there that don't understand what self love is or meditation, even yoga, for example. I always thought, going back 10, 15 years ago, when you mentioned yoga and meditation, I would laugh. I go, I don't need that. What's that? And it took years and years of understanding the definition of yoga and meditation and what does it do for a human being, especially your mindset, your body. It's a completely different experience. And if you're practicing it and you're really taking it seriously, you definitely become a better human being. Yeah,
Yeah, you really can. And again, if you're using the insights, if you're not just showing up, because I do know people who have like practiced yoga regularly, many
sure,
yoga classes, but they were never looking in the mirror. There was no self awareness there. So it just became like a workout.
sure, sure.
And same with meditation, it can happen to a degree if it's like showing up to check off a box. So, I usually recommend like, okay, if somebody says, oh, meditate, and someone says, well, I don't really like to meditate. Well, I would recommend, well, why don't you try different types of meditations and see if there's one that resonates with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all these modalities, there's so many useful things, but it's really what resonates with you the most.
Absolutely. And I even think taking a nice long walk to get your mind right, seeing the beauty of the outdoors, trees, nature, I think that changes your mindset and it improves you as a human being. Sometimes you're off and just take a walk. Why not? You're having a bad day, do it. And to my personal experiences, I know that have changed my mindset when I'm feeling down or I'm doubting myself. I do take that walk and it definitely makes me think differently after that 15, 20-minute walk, and
Yeah.
it's good. It's good. So, Sonora, how do you prioritize joy over happiness?
Um, I used to think happiness was the most important indicator of what's happening in our lives. But for most of those years, when I didn't realize I was carrying so much grief, I actually would have told you I was happy if you asked me how I was doing. And I actually thought I was. Um, but it's a very logical answer. And so I prioritize joy because joy is energized happiness. So you can't misread it. You can't think, oh, I'm feeling joyful. It's it's effervescent. It's a feeling. Whereas I feel like happiness, we usually measure it by just
Sure.
facts, a set of facts. And so if there's something we're not seeing about ourselves and our lives in the moment, it's very easy to fool ourselves into thinking that we're feeling good.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So you have part of your business and your brand, your personal brand. Let's dive into a little bit about your work and what you do. And part of your magnetize your personal brand. Let's talk a little bit about that so the audience could know where to find you and understand what you do for work.
Hmm. Okay, yeah. So shortly after I finished the manuscript for my book, I was thinking about how we keep hearing so much about the importance of having a personal brand, and it is so important. But the external considerations are usually, the point of the focus.
Sure.
So, what your website looks like, what you're wearing, social media templates, and while those things they do certainly help, they carry weight. But the most important element is actually the person. So I took principles from my book and my lived experience because I learned the hard way
Sure.
to develop basically a system that it's developing the person from the inside out. So yes, I help people with messaging and positioning, but that's the end of the engagement. The beginning is really the person because my definition of a personal brand is the essence of who you are and how that essence is perceived.
Sure.
So a lot of people think about how should I show up? I'm going to kind of perform in meetings. I'm going to look at who's a successful person in my field. How do they talk? What are the words
Yeah.
they use? What is their energy? And it's that can get people short-term wins, but it's not sustainable because people really connect with other people, and they can't connect with you if you're not showing up as who you are. And it goes beyond authenticity. It goes beyond that. It goes into like, what are the boundaries you set with people? What kind of clients you're attracting? People who regularly attract clients that are who are problematic. It's usually because the energy they're putting out. It's like, when you're not putting basically, if you're not setting those boundaries in the beginning, that leads to so many issues later on. They're like confidence. We work on confidence. So many different elements because again it's like are you afraid to incorporate the things that you think are interesting in your content online? Do you want to keep it to just speaking about okay, like here are the facts, but it's like okay, what will separate you from other people? Like if there's 10 of your competitors standing in a row, how are they going to pick you from that group if you're not showing who you are? Because uh, at the end of the day, no matter how big a company is or small, people are doing business with people. People refer people. There are people I refer forever who I will never need their services
Yeah.
probably, but I really love the work that they do and their energy. And even the things that they talk about, the personal things they love, some of those things are things I have no interest in whatsoever, but I love their passion about it and the way other people that are passionate about what they're passionate in, how that resonates with them. And so they're always on like top of mind for referrals. So it's really about, um, you can kind of draw a parallel with this conversation we had about self
Of
love.
course.
It's really about developing that internal base and then really sharing that with the world in ways that can make them be more memorable.
Sure. Sure. So, Shanoa, let's give the audience an example. So, let's pretend myself, I'm struggling and I need help in a way that I need direction. I need a motivational pat on the back so I can move forward.
Mhm.
Walk me through the tools that you would use for to get me to the right path and align myself in the correct direction.
Mm. After something difficult has happened?
Yes.
Yeah. First, I would say give yourself time to actually feel those feelings. I think a lot of us, we just want to fix things quickly. And then we carry too much of those emotions we haven't dealt with us into the future. But next, I would say, like, really try to get excited about the fact that you don't know what's going to
Of
happen
course.
next. And, when something disappointing happens, a lot of the big fear is really like, oh, I thought I had everything under control. and I thought I knew how everything was going to
Yeah.
be. And then you feel like you're just kind of lost at sea. Um, so if, you're dealing with, like, let's say, like, a business setback or something like that, I would say, okay, get comfortable with not having all the variables, but start trusting, like, okay, well, even though I don't know what's going to happen, what can I do that's within my control to start kind of taking those small steps to get to where I want to go. And after that, I'm really going to talk about self love. I can talk about that all day long.
Yes.
The self love piece has to be there, because if you're trying to come out of a bad spot, but all day long you're dealing with this internal dialogue that's unhealthy and hypercritical, it's really like driving and pushing the brakes at the same time. You really got to get on your own side.
Right.
Um, and once you do that, then you start having um, a greater level of awareness. And from that greater level of awareness, you're able to make better decisions, and you start to see different opportunities and different possibilities that you just can't see when you're just seeing like roadblocks. You're just seeing like doors closing because you're so stuck in the energy of whatever it is that
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. We spoke about self love and joy a lot today. So, how can someone reconnect joy without bypassing their grief?
Hmm. um, yeah, I highly recommend first giving the grief sufficient time, not like running like, oh, this thing happened and tomorrow let me read a book to fix it. Like,
Sure.
no, like you have to really sit with it. Um, but I really like how I really like the power of awe. You mentioned going for long walks.
Hmm.
I love long walks too, and there's something about nature,
Sure.
right? When we connect to things in nature, or we just happen to be in nature, spending time there, we see so many things, we experience so many things that really bring us back to a sense of awe. And it can be difficult to a sense of awe if somebody's in
Sure.
grief. But those environments, there's just so much of it. It's hard for you to not feel affected by some of it. But for some people, like the early days of, what happened with me with my boyfriend's passing, I was so far from awe. So I would spend a lot of time in nature, which was good for me, but I was not connecting to awe. So I'd say for anyone who's, that would be a bridge too far so soon. I would focus on helping other people, and not to the point where, you're abandoning yourself. But when we start helping other people, we see how they
Sure.
respond to that support, whether it's like volunteering or there's just so many ways to give back, but preferably giving back in a way that's like in person, around people and community. When you see the way that something that you've done, how that's affected a person and their
Right.
emotions, it's a really good shortcut for starting to feel those higher emotions again. And of course, it's a benefit for everyone involved.
Sure. Absolutely. It's practical. It's critical. You know, Shanoa, are you living the life of your dreams right now?
I am. I am. And I made sure to ask myself that
What?
question before I published my book. I was like, wait.
Absolutely.
And I was at that time, and I am now. And it's just like actually a better layer, or a further layer of that dream life. And I look forward to expanding that to other ones. And I think it's really important that once we're in a good place, that we continue to dream big and we continue to question the size of our dreams. For every area of our lives, it's easy to say, okay, yeah, this is what I want. And then you might look back a few weeks later and you're like, why would I only shoot for that? And it's not a competition. It's not about, oh, we need to have like these, extraordinary, novel worthy lives. It's not about that. It's really about we become more in the
Sure.
process as we reach for these greater things. And these greater aims. It could be even better relationships with our family, better friendships, And so all the intangibles that come along the way, I think in the end, they end up being more important than whatever physical things we might gain in the process. But that just, it just really, it really expands the quality of our lives. And that's very important to me.
Absolutely. I agree. Shanoa, So, for the audience that's going to buy your book after they listen to this podcast, can you please share an exercise from your book so an audience members could take something away with them after listening or watching this episode?
Yeah. Um, let's go with pretending that you're a friend.
Sure. There you go.
So not letting a single thought or judgment pass through your mind that is not something that would be appropriate for you to say to a friend.
Okay.
Each time you're going to question it and either drop it or you're going to turn it around. And I think that's really important as you're developing your relationship with yourself. And it's like, what, you made a mistake. It's like, okay, yeah, I did. And so what? Now I just learned and I move on. But we have to start, we have to be really vigilant about developing the relationships with ourselves. So I'd say if you couldn't say it to a friend and then not expect that friend to get mad or
Yeah. Yeah.
tell you to leave,
Sure.
it's absolutely inappropriate for you to say it to yourself. So just getting really vigilant about that until you won't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something. I think about the friends I've had throughout my lifespan. And what's funny, when you in middle school, high school, you move on in life, you lose a lot of friends. But then you might have one or two friends that to today you're still friends with. And it's extremely critical to tell your friends the truth. If they're doing something that they don't want you to tell the truth, it's critical that you do tell your friends the absolutely truth, even if they don't want to listen or hear it, because that's what friendship is about: bringing people together and talking with, especially with people that you've known for so many years.
Mm.
It's
Yeah, I agree. I think we often silence ourselves there. A lot of people, it's like, well, if I don't say anything,
yeah,
then there doesn't have to be a difficult conversation.
right.
But it's much easier to just say the
Yep,
thing.
absolutely. Shanoa, are you the secret to your success?
Yes, I believe we all are the
Love it.
secret to our
Yeah,
success. And that's,
yeah,
yeah. So I think that's really important when people, a lot of people, because of many fear related reasons, they want to work and do the work, but they don't want any of themselves to be in that work. And that is because, for example, fear of rejection. So if I keep this very like this work very clinical, this content very clinical, or if I just show up with this as this avatar of a professional person, it's not me. Then if I don't get X number of likes on my post or people are debating my thought leadership, then it's not about me. And that's really dangerous because we can't make everyone happy. Um, but we also can't attract all of the people who would gravitate towards us, who would resonate towards us, our message, our purpose, um, without expressing who we
sure.
are. And so, yes, we are absolutely the secrets to our
Yeah,
success, especially in this AI age. And we're just in the early days now, but people are craving authenticity. There's so much fluff
yes,
and noise out there. So it's like, it's not about showing up as this like perfect, nobody's perfect. But when you show up with your real voice, people are ready to
yeah.
listen.
It's great to be authentic, and I totally agree with you. Technology it's something, right? But if you're an authentic person and honest and real, people will bring that together, let's say. When I talk to others and I just think about what I'm going to talk when I'm interviewing you, Shanoa, or interviewing others, or even when I'm alone talking to the audience and recording a podcast, it's so much thought process that goes into it. And again, it took 3 years for me to create a podcast. And it's because of those reasons: not knowing where to start, being judged, people that I work with, maybe my friends saying, "Why are you doing this? It's a waste of time." So it took so long for me to motivate my own self to say, I'm stepping forward. And I'm trying, when I say authentic, I'm trying to be as authentic as possible. And I'm learning every episode, even this conversation, I learned a lot from you, but it's also just making my mindset so much clearer how to do better interviews, how to do better podcasting. And it's fascinating. I love it and I enjoy it so much. So,
I'm glad you started your podcast. Yes. There's so
yeah,
much there's so much we can miss out on because of
yeah,
fear. I mean, it's pretty funny because my very first podcast interview never actually aired. It was a few years before I wrote my book, and it was related to something very different. It was in the fintech marketing world, financial tech. And what's wild is it was off camera and it was with a colleague who's a friend. So why would I be nervous? But this is when I
yeah,
I still was working on so many things that I have in my program there. And I remembered I just had this visceral reaction of anxiety
sure.
and everything was fine. And then she asked me a question out of curiosity that was completely outside of what I thought she would ask me.
Yeah,
And I just completely I butchered the interview. Like the editor could not fix it.
sure.
But it's really funny because, I could have taken that as like, oh my gosh, that was so stressful. But no, I had to see, okay, why was I feeling like that day? What was happening in my life? Why I felt that was like,
Yeah.
I put so much pressure on myself. The next podcast interview I had was the first one since writing this book. And it was like, people thought I was on podcasts for years. So it's like, don't give up.
Don't give
And we do learn something every time, even as a guest.
absolutely. Talking, if I go back to my first episode and today, it's a huge difference. Huge. And it's great. I do enjoy it. And it's a great space for people to bring people together. And again, if your message, my message touches one person in this world, Chanoa, we did our job.
Yes,
And that's how
for
I see
sure.
things. And it's amazing. And it's not going to stop. You and I, with so many others, we're going to make a change in this world for the better. There's people that need to listen and hear our message and what you and I have to bring to this world.
Yeah. For sure. And I hope any of your listeners who have been hesitating, like just take that step, try it out.
Sure, definitely. So, Shanoa, besides the episode description, just explain to the audience where can they find your book?
My book is available on Amazon, Audible, Pothy, Kobo, and Apple Books. It's called Dream On.
Love it.
How to create the new life of your dreams after upheaval or loss. And it's actually been very helpful to people who also are not in a difficult time in their lives. They just want to dream bigger.
Sure, sure. So, Shanoa, every time I finish an interview and conclude an interview, I like to ask one final question. What final thoughts or message would you like to share with the world?
Um, no matter what happens, you can always come back from it. And reinvention is your birthright.
I love that. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being part of this journey with me. I appreciate you again taking your time out and talking with me today. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again, Chanoa. Before I go, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for pressing play. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on YouTube. I truly appreciate you taking the time to be here with me. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, follow the podcast so you don't miss out on the next episode. And remember, your influence grows every time you choose courage over comfort. I'm JV. Stay curious, stay consistent, and keep influencing others.